So the timing of this program is perfect. We actually just had radon abatement installed in my house today. And we bought our house about 20 years ago, and there was no radon issue at that time. And I don't know what prompted my husband to get a test, but the values fluctuated quite a bit, but we did have periods of time where it was above the safe limit. So we just had that done today. So it's just perfect timing. But so I'm so thankful that Cecily Serrazzo from Eastern Highlands Health District was able to come and share this information. The organization is such a valuable resource. You may have seen their team here doing COVID clinics, and someone from the staff is coming next month to do a well water program. So that'll be another really interesting one. We're trying to do a whole home wellness series. So thank you for coming. Thank you so much, Cecily. We really appreciate it, and enjoy the program.
Okay, so as Trish said, my name is Cecily Serrazzo. I'm the Community Health and Wellness Coordinator for Eastern Highlands. I want to let you know right up front, if you have a question, feel free to ask it at any time. I will try to answer the question. I am not going to tell you that I'm a super expert on radon at all. If I can't answer the question, I will follow up with an email, or I'll tell you where you might be able to get that answer. Okay? So, why are we here? What's up with radon? I was really excited when we scheduled this originally last week because the 23rd was the beginning of Radon Week. So, but it's still an important issue to talk about now. It's not just during Radon Week that we have an issue with radon, but you can go to the EPA, the CDC, great information about radon and how it affects your health and how you can mitigate your risk. All right. So today we're going to talk about what radon is, how it enters your home, health effects, testing, and mitigation. So radon is a radioactive gas. It's released from rocks, soil, and water. So it's potentially everywhere. Everywhere across the United States, in all 50 states. But, as we'll see later, it could be an issue in my house, but not in my neighbor's. So I will say this several times throughout this discussion, testing is the way that you know. You know if you have a problem, your neighbor knows if he has a problem when he tests. So, radiation and radon. Radon, as I said, is a radioactive gas. It's odorless, colorless, so you can't see. It's not like sulfur in the house, and you know that there's the smell of sulfur. They're atoms that are from the breakdown of uranium, which many of us know uranium is used for for nuclear power. So there's not usually large amounts of uranium under there, but all you need is lots of bits of little bits. As it breaks down in a rock, it breaks down and then it's released and it finds its way. It wants to go upward. So gas wants to expand at all times. It wants to get to its furthest and to even itself out, and we'll see why that's a problem. Great concentrations of uranium, as I just said before, are rare. Traces of it are common in ordinary rock and soil throughout much of the United States. Concentrations vary greatly from place to place, depending on the geology. I will tell you that this area of the country has, in general, a fair amount of issues with radon. So because we're on a kind of a bedrock, a lot of rock here in New England, it's one of the reasons. So what is it again? Radioactive gas, colorless, odorless, tasteless, found all over the United States, in buildings that are old, in buildings that are new, in drafty or well-sealed buildings, right? With or without the basements. So in all kinds of homes. And as I was talking to Trish earlier, that can change over time. So much like the aquifer and wells. You want to get your well tested periodically over 5-10 years. You want to get your well retested. You want to do radon every 5 to 10 years. Why? Because it can change. The earth shifts, and there's more release. The rock starts to break down at a faster rate. You have more, things like that. So,
Are you thinking?
Go ahead.
Let us know how to test for that?
yes,
Okay.
yes. Okay, so it's way down here that it starts typically, the rock with the uranium in it. If it becomes radon, then radon, that's the transformation from the rock to the one component and to then the gas. And then it's up into the house, potentially. Is it just in the house? No, but we're talking about our health and the concentrations in our homes and our own safety. Is it in the air outside of the house? Yes, but as I talked about before, gas wants to go out. It doesn't want to stay concentrated if it can. It wants to go spread out and end up in an equilibrium. So that's why outside in the open, not usually a problem at all. It's in concentrated spaces. Okay. So, as I said, the issue with radon is that it can penetrate different layers. So it can go through, this is paper, it can go through concrete, it can go through tissue, it can also lodge into tissue, and that's what we're going to talk about a little bit too. So that's the reason that a house can be well sealed or drafty, new or old. All of them have the potential to have a problem. Why it enters the house. The house acts like a vacuum, drawing gas inside because of something called negative pressure. So it gets pulled in as the pressure inside the house is less, and it wants to go in there and not escape to the outside. And then it stays inside the house, and that's the problem. Then you have this higher concentrations, it's not able to dissipate. So why are we concerned about radon and its health effects? Does anybody know anything about radon and the potential health effects that it can have on you? I got it here, but so it's a gas. So you're going to potentially breathe it in. Most of the time it's a gas. It can be in water, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But what we're really talking about at the most potentially harmful is as a gas. So it can go into the lung, and again, it's radioactive. So it can go into the lung, irritate tissue, and it can go into the lung with a particle of dust, so it can attach itself to dust, again, embed even farther into the tissue, and then possibly cause cancer. It increases the risk of developing lung cancer specifically. That's what we're talking about with radon. At this point, there is not a lot of evidence, clear evidence, about other cancers, but there is very clear evidence that radon can cause lung cancer. You won't feel that right away. And that, again, is colorless, odorless. You're not going to know that this is a problem right away. The radiation damages the cells and the DNA, and according to the American Cancer Society, some research has shown a connection between other cancers. So they're not as clear though, including adult and childhood leukemia, but the evidence is not as strong as that of cancer, lung cancer, and radon. Some of the numbers. It is the #1 cause of lung cancer among non-smokers. So if you're a non-smoker, radon would be the #1 cause if you got lung cancer, right? If you are a smoker, that increases your risk exponentially. because they work together, these two carcinogens, and your risk is much, much higher. Put another way, the EPA says, a person who never smoked, who is exposed to 1.3, this is a measurement for the amount of radon, PCIs per liter, has a 2 in 1,000 chance of lung cancer, while a smoker has 20, so 10 times, 20 in 1,000 chance of dying from lung cancer. So how is that happening?
Do you
Go
know
ahead,
what the
please.
chance of lung cancer is just for the smoker?
It is the #1 cause of
No,
lung
I
cancer
know
for
that would just
smokers,
give
but
a-
yeah, the numbers, I don't have
That would
that.
give the
That's a great
multiplicative
question.
effect of
Yes.
radon with it, or if it's just, I'm
Yes.
just curious.
Yeah,
That's just
unfortunately,
sorry.
I don't
Don't worry
have
about
that. It is the #1 cause of lung cancer. It's the #1 cancer right now. I mean, there's some fluctuation, but
I
yes.
understand. I'll
Yeah.
look it up. The
Yeah.
EPA must have something. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so how does it cause lung cancer? By inhaling the radon, these decaying alpha particles. The alpha particles can also can penetrate the more sensitive and vulnerable lung tissues. And as I said, it also has the ability to attach to dust particles that you then inhale. And again, causing an irritant to the lung and the possibility of lung cancer. So, how is it entering our house? Cracks in the solid floor, sure. So it can penetrate rock, obviously, it's gone through rock, but if you open up a gap in the floor, if the floor is opened up, it's got a faster route up there, right? So it's going right up. At the joints, again, most often joints are not completely sealed. There's going to be cracks there, so it's got a crack in there. Cracks in walls, gapes in suspended floors, gapes around service pipes, cavities inside walls, the water supply. So there's all kinds of ways that it can get in. And also, as I said, the water. So I'll stop here and let you know that if you test your home and there is radon with these tests that I've given you, this is about air. Typically after that, you're going to go to, you're going to contact someone who does mitigation, and you want to have a contractor who specifically does this kind of work. It's very important that they do it right, and they will retest because they want to make sure that the results that you have are the results that they have, and then they're going to do something typically with the air. If that does not kind of change things, and we'll talk about what that looks like. I'm not fast forwarding through that. But with water, that would be something that they would test afterwards because it's a little more intense, the kind of work that has to be done, and that's not necessarily as much of an issue. What happens with water, the ingestion of radon is, the studies have shown that that's not as much of a problem. You're not going to get that from there. But what happens is when you turn on the faucet, the water comes down and the radon aerates. It goes out into the air. So again, it's about the gas. It's been released again.
So does that mean if this test for the air comes
Yep.
back negative and you don't worry about the water, or is that?
You should. One of the things you should test your water. It's one of the other things that we, in a month from now, the Chief Sanitarian, Lynette Swanson, will be here to talk about well water. But usually we start off with radon as a gas, the question of the gas in the house. And also, if you think about what I said, the problem with the water is typically it's the gas coming off of the water. So this test would potentially show some, and if you tested further, it would show the gas in the house. And again, you're breathing it in is the biggest problem.
I was
It's
just
the lung
thinking if that's
cancer.
our basement, there's not necessarily a water supply in the basement.
But remember, gas spreads out, and it goes to, as it wants to cause equilibrium
Doesn't just go
throughout.
out, do it go down into the
It-
basement, like from the second floor?
Not really to go down to the basement, but you're really going to check. Typically, the water is going to come from the same rock that you're in, if you're doing a well, if we're talking about a well. And that would be potentially the same thing. If you're concerned, I would certainly test your water. Again, I think that everybody should be I know that everybody should be testing the water for various things. But they start off usually with the gas, the air, aeration, and move from there.
So it sounds like if you do not have a positive result on the air quality radon test,
Yeah,
you're unlikely to have a positive test from the water.
that's a great question. Likely not.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say that, I'd like to get back, you know what, everybody had the email, Trish has everybody's email. I'm gonna look into that and make sure that I feel completely
Okay.
comfortable
And
about that
And
answer.
that would be more true if you have no basement and your air quality was being done from the first floor in the living area, as well as the area where the water
Yeah.
from most surfaces are being expanding into the first floor area.
Can you repeat that? I feel like I'm
I'm just saying,
lost.
so if you're testing, you said at the outset,
Yeah,
go to the lowest level.
Yeah.
Okay, so the lowest level, it's got the laundry, but that's all self-contained. The washer dryer just goes out. There's no running water down there per se.
yeah,
The running water's on the first floor. So we do the air test in the basement,
yeah,
and we come back negative.
yeah.
So now it's unlikely we're going to have an air problem in the first level because there's no level in the basement and the gases are rising.
Yes,
And that's why I'm saying it's unlikely,
Yes.
if you're negative in the basement, that you will have
a problem in the first floor.
a
Yes,
problem in the first one.
yes.
Okay.
Unlikely. I love the word unlikely.
Unlikely.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then if
Yes.
you do a test on the first floor, because you have no basement, you've got both the open water sources as well as the air sources. If you're negative
Yes.
on that, you're,
Very unlikely, but you
Okay.
want to test again
Oh, you would
later.
test- so even if you-
No, I mean,
okay.
over a couple of
Oh,
years, because
yes.
things can change.
gotcha. Okay.
And
Understand. Okay.
you, something else that you prompted me to think about. And also, all of these tests, the tests that I've given you, and I said this earlier, but it bears repeating, you need to make sure that it's in a place where you're not going to be opening the door. Like, you don't want to put it right in front of the front door, because all that is going to mess with the results, and you won't get that. So if you don't have a basement, go ahead.
Is the season critical?
So there is a fluctuation in seasons, in part because of how open your house is. So during the winter, our houses are as much as we can, we seal them up. So that means the concentration is going to be sealed up in there. And then in the summer, if it's really hot, we're also probably sealed up with the air conditioners. So those times, there is a fluctuation because of the breakdown of rock during certain times of the year, but I would say definitely the reason that the EPA suggests that you test at this time of year is because you're going to have your house closed up. And this is when you potentially have your highest levels. And we want to know the highest level because that's what we want to know if we need to treat, right? So there is some, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So what is a high level? What is a level that you need to be concerned about? Obviously, we'd like to have none, but as I said earlier, this is something that's in the environment everywhere, so likely we can't have a zero. When do you need to take action then? At a level of 4.0 PCI to a liter. So that's if and when you test with these kits, you get your results back, and they will also say they will indicate to you that you may need to get a mitigation for this problem. Again, the contractor is going to test themselves because they need to know what, they want to make sure that it was done well and what they have in front of them. This action level is not a health-based standard. So that's not based on your risk per se of cancer. But what we know is, because there's no safe level of radon, right? So we want to get it down as low as we can, and we definitely want to take action at 4.0 or higher. The EPA recommends that radon levels of greater than 4 be reduced to decrease risk of developing lung cancer. Should be decreased. The World Health Organization actually recommends 2.7. So they have a lower standard. The evidence that they have indicates that that is a better standard.
What is the criteria for that 4.0? And what is the end result, I guess?
I'm not quite sure. So why did they choose 4.0? I think some basic, so when they say that it's not a health-based standard, it's not because, at that level, at 3.8, you wouldn't have any problem. We want it to be as close to 0 as possible. So at that point, they decided that the risk is great enough that action must be taken. But it doesn't mean that at 3.8 you have 0 risk.
Sure.
That's really why it's the 4.0 is there. That with the curve of risk, the risk analysis, that is the point at which they feel that we must take action for a radon. Okay. Testing is the only way to know. So what this shows is that this house is 100, this house is 1.25, and this person doesn't know. Again, the variations in the rock that's under your house make a difference. The variations in your own home, the way your home is constructed, make a difference. Again, we go back to, it could be a new home, it could be an old home, but there are variations. But most importantly, the only way for you to know is to do a test. Not by looking at it, you wouldn't know. Obviously, these homes are potentially exactly the same.
Do you get as high as 100?
Yes.
Do you do?
Oh, I don't do the testing myself.
Yeah, but
you can. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Where you find really high numbers, obviously, is in mining, places where they do mining, where uranium is breaking down. So you would have potentially in those areas. Because rock, the radon comes from rock and soil by formations, none of the formations are completely uniform. So just like we could see, we'd all love to say that there's diamonds everywhere around the world, and right under my geraniums, there I can find a diamond. No, you're going to find some diamonds more likely in some place like South Africa, but in every place in South Africa, no. That's why they look around. So there are places where you'll find concentrations and more likely, but it doesn't mean that you'll definitely have those levels. And that's, again, why we want to, the only way we know if our house is a problem is to test. DPH recommends using a nationally certified measurement provider to test for radon. DPH provided these tests through funding from the federal government as well. For a single building, single or multifamily, DPH recommends testing the lowest occupied space. So I say the basement, again, because if you're going in and out of there, you can get down there. It's going to be closest to the source. And you have the potential for accessing the radon gas there as well. A short-term testing device is placed for a minimum of 48 hours, a maximum to 7 days, depending on the device used. That's what these are for. So you're going to put them down there and follow the directions for a minimum of 2 days, maximum of 7. I suggest don't try to max it at 7. Do 6 maybe. Why? Because you've got to get that in the mail and it's got to get to the lab in time. Otherwise, the results aren't valid. And then we have to, I probably won't have another test to give you, and then you'd have to pay for the test. Tests aren't super expensive, but just don't cut it too close. Don't do it have it fall on a Sunday either, because then you can't get it in the mail, can you?
What if you have a forced air heating system,
So,
even in the basement?
so that doesn't really make much difference in terms of the testing. Is that what you're asking about,
Well,
the
because
testing?
we have vents in the basement.
Oh, I see what yes, you're right. So that kind of blowing of the air would make a difference possibly in your results. Great question. So you'd want to put it not right over the vent, but in a corner where there isn't that kind of fluctuation. The fluctuation that we're typically, because that's forced air and that's coming up and that's going to kind of blow things around, but the real problem comes when people open the doors. So the air is sucked out, the radon rather is potentially sucked out. If you're opening a window, it's gone out, and we haven't, the level is going to end up being possibly lower. So, great question. Try to put it in a place where you're not going to have that blowing if you do have your in the basement first air. Okay, so seasonal, the question about seasonal differences. Winter readings are typically higher than those taken in the summer. During winter, the larger differential between outdoor and indoor pressure is likely to lead to a higher entry of radon into the house than would occur in summer. In addition, your home is likely to be less ventilated in the winter. In other words, you're not opening and closing your doors as much, right? The EPA recommends testing in the winter when windows or doors are shut and the levels will be at their highest. Given the warm weather that we're having, you might be opening some doors and windows a little bit more right now. So again, try to put it, if you take the test, put it, even if you're opening up some windows for fresh air, try to put it in a place where that's not going to affect the test.
Now,
Yes.
when we tested in the basement, say,
Yep.
okay, like I have ventilation there, should I shut it off during it?
You want to, likely that you have some vents, but there'll be spaces where there are no vents, right? Maybe a corner where there's no vents? Is it completely?
It's like first floor.
It's like
It's
the
the same
first floor.
setup.
So, if you can close the vents, can you close individually,
Yeah.
close the vents? So find a place where there is less there are fewer vents, and close those vents.
Just shut it off.
You don't need to shut off the entire, well, I don't want you to be cold. Yeah. Okay. So radon mitigation systems. They are effective, they're relatively, now this is, what we're talking about right now is the air systems, to mitigate, mitigation for radon in the air as a gas. They're relatively inexpensive and easy to install. Average cost is $1,200. That's from DPH. Trish let me know how much hers was. It was about $1,295. So we're still a little bit of a bump with inflation, but $1,295. That's for air. Water, if you have to do something with the water, it's a little bit more expensive. All right. DPH recommends using a nationally certified mitigation provider to perform radon mitigation. Why? Because they know what they're doing, and hopefully they will do it exactly as specified by the EPA and by DPH. To be that board certified, rather nationally certified, you're through the NRSB or the NRPP. You must be a home improvement contractor registered with the Department of Consumer Protection from the state. So, also because in general, yes, go ahead.
Sorry, is the board that you mentioned before still serving?
Oh, yes, does anybody have that clipboard? Oh, can we just pass that up and we'll get that? Thank you.
Is there a form that has all this information on it? To go looking for this stuff?
Okay, so if you have a problem with radon, I have this booklet. If you know that you are going to need to do some work, I'm also going to send out the link for this. I didn't print a whole bunch of. I think I said this earlier for you too. I didn't print a whole bunch of them because they are 10 pages, double-sided, and I didn't want to throw them away at the end or put them somewhere and no one was going to use them if nobody took them. But I'm going to send out the link with the other information to this as well. There is also some other information here about healthy homes, indoor air quality, the things that you can do to improve the air quality. I did bring stuff about radon in well water as well, so if you like that. And nothing to do with radon whatsoever. If anybody wants, these are Band-Aids, little packets, emergency Band-Aids, Eastern Highlands. And then there's my card. So if you get home and have a question and you'd like to email me, feel free to do that. All right, so let's see. This is a typical mitigation system for air again. What it's going to do is it's going to pull the radon up from the soil. So it's going to be placed below the line, the soil line of your house, below the last level of your house. It's going to pull it up and it's going to send it out. And again, remember that gas wants to dissipate. It wants to equalize itself out there. So it's going to go. And there's a fan that's attached to that. And there's always this little system here. The U-tube, let's first read the fan. The fan is located in an unconditioned space like an attic, garage, or outside the home. The U-tube manometer is a device that usually indicates if the radon fan is working. So that's the way I actually have a radon system as well in my house. And when the fan's not working, there's the level, it's like a little red fluid, will go up and it says call your radon person because the fan's not working. So it's a really easy way. It's very quiet. You hardly know that it's going. The radon mitigation system tag is attached to every radon system with the installer's name, phone number, installing date, and license number. The effective notification monitor. This isn't in every system about the alarm. Some systems have it and some don't. It's not an automatic. But that would alarm to you to say that it's not working properly. And then the suction pit is a pit dug below the basement floor where the radon pipe pulls radon directly beneath the home's foundation and vents it outside. Sometimes there'll be more than one pit, depending on the size of your house.
Is that on the outside of the house, or does that come right up through your floors and everything?
I'll show you. No, it doesn't come up through the floors. There's a radon system right here. So it comes up and around. It's outside. One, because that's easy, you're not destroying everything, and also it keeps it outside the house, right? Here's another one. So there's the fan, and up and out. Here's a couple of others. More information. So the National Radon Program Services exit disclaimer at the Kansas State University is funded by the EPA and aimed at promoting public awareness of radon. So this is a place that you could go to find it. And I will also add this to the email. So it's a place that tells you a little bit about the services for radon, and they're associated with the university, Kansas State University. They can give you information without having a skin in the game per se, and they're not trying to sell you the systems. They're telling you more information about it. Also, there's a radon hotline run through the EPA, SOS Radon, and also a specialist hotline for more information, and I'll include that too. So there's lots of information out there about radon. Questions? Did everybody fill their name? There's information in. Did anybody not get a test? You did not get a test. Okay. So, let's see here. Last test. Yay! Right. Sorry. Does anybody have any other questions or concerns or thoughts? Has anybody had a mitigation system attached to their house yet? One of the things that was not brought up in here is that, but I did say, was the fact that you want to test more than once. Typically, people test when they buy a house, and then they never think about it again. But you want to test. Things change. The rock changes. The earth shifts, and your levels could change. Yes, go ahead.
So we have that open area. It's 4 by 16, so 64 square feet
Yeah.
of just crushed rock that goes down.
Yep.
And is it likely that more radon comes into the house from that crushed stone than the concrete? The impression I get from you is, who knows?
So the crushed stone is in that root cellar section, is that right?
The whole,
Yeah, it's not paved.
it's not
Yeah.
there. So the whole house sits on
The
6
crushed stone.
inches of crushed rock.
Yeah.
Most of the house has a 4-inch reinforced concrete.
But then you
floor.
have concrete on top,
Yeah, except for this 4 by 16
4 by
area.
6.
And so it's kind of like, is that crushed rock area
It
more like,
depends.
and it depends, is
Yes.
what I heard you saying is, you
Yes.
don't
It
know.
could, but
Yeah.
sealing your cracks
Well, this is just
reduces
a
the
big,
amount. If you could test
it's
and
effectively a
have
big crack.
and have no problem,
Okay.
and then
Yeah.
you wouldn't want to think that you
Okay.
don't have to think about it. If your test comes out that it's for a greater,
Right. That might
then
be
you
one
want
of
to
the
talk
things to
to,
fix.
you want to talk to a mitigation guy. They probably have better answers than I do about
Okay,
that.
that's fair, that's fair. I didn't know how effective the ventilation systems were, if they could reduce a house that's, 100 down to under 4, or do you need something?
So typically, at that point, you're gonna go to also checking to see if we can reduce it by water.
Okay,
as well.
the bigger system,
So-
okay,
So
That's fair.
when the first steps don't work,
Yep.
you're gonna go to the next one.
Okay.
Again, and we didn't have the thing about water here. I actually have a water mitigation as well, because prior to my moving into the house, the levels continued to be high, even with aerating the house. So, it's a little old system, so I should probably update it, but basically what it does is the water comes in through the pump and gets pumped into this box, and then the radon is pulled away and it's sent, because again, it's a gas. It's sucked up and sent back through the same tube that's taking out the gas from the basement of my house.
and that fixed the problem?
It's not 0, but it's under 4.
Okay.
It's under
So
4. That's the
what-
best we
what-
can do in my house.
What I'm curious
But-
about is, what it suggests then is, if you still had significant radon after the air, that you had a large exposure coming from the water. And I wonder if the water exposure was actually greater than the air exposure. Or-
No, but it's cumulative.
No, I know,
Yeah,
but, so you
so-
mitigate with the air.
Yep.
And the level falls down.
Yep,
So say you were at, call it 100.
yep,
And you went from 100 to 50.
yep,
And then you put in the water and you went from 50 down to 10.
yep,
So you had a significant, almost the same amount of radon coming in from water. If the air mitigation took you from 100 down to 20,
yep.
and then the water took you down from 20 to, that's what I'm curious about, is what, relatively speaking,
I don't know
if you
that
don't
answer.
remember,
I don't know
is
that
how much
answer.
was water and how much was air?
Yeah, this system was put in prior to my moving
Okay.
in,
Oh,
so I didn't
okay.
know that part
Yeah,
about
okay.
it. Yeah,
That-
no. And I think that just putting it out there, again, this is not something that I definitely know, but it would depend on where the water was sourced from, in the same rock, what rock it is. I mean, my well is, we live on a big ledge of rock, and my well is fairly close to the house, so it's going to be somewhat the same kind of a thing. But maybe yours, potentially,
Yeah.
if you have city water, I know that Bolton doesn't have city water. So, but if you were someone who didn't live here, I also, obviously, I have a well, I live in Portland, but also kind of rural. You wouldn't be stepping to the water as the next thing, the next step in that house, if you had levels and you had city water. Potentially, it could still be in city water, but it's not likely to be the source. Most cities actually do something about that as well. That's a great question. But I think that would be for this. Yeah.
May I use yours for just a second?
So here are the, nope, that's the address that you have to send it back to. And here, they wanted to make you have to use a, reading glasses for it, unfortunately. They're a little tiny, I'm sorry. There's the instructions on how to do the test, when to end the test, and some of the products and things that you may want to think about, and also a way to get those test results. So this is the information that you send in about where you were. That's really important to where not where you were, but where the canister was placed. So it gives them an idea, and then obviously your contact information. So. Any other questions?
How high do you need to put this box?
So this one's a little different than the one we had last year, and I just want to make sure that yeah, it says expose the canister in your home for, like we said, 2 days to 7 days. They actually specify the hours. So when they say 48 hours to 168 hours, so you know that you really want to make sure to go air more towards 6 days rather than 7, because the hours were important there. Again, you want to put this in a place that is not going to be knocked about. So if you have animals, the animals aren't going to get in there and knock it about. And that it is, you don't want to actually put it on the floor because the changes in temperature might affect it, so a little higher up. The ones we had last year were actually something that you hung up, so they changed the tests. Yes, go ahead.
I would say put it at a level where you breathe.
Yeah,
The gas is going to dissipate
yes it is,
uniformly
exactly.
throughout that space.
Yes,
So, and you're concerned about your exposure to lungs, so it's kind of like where you're breathing it in.
yeah, yeah.
So I wouldn't put it in the ceiling and I wouldn't
No.
put it at the floor, somewhere around
Yeah,
head level,
yeah.
5 feet, you're in the neighborhood.
And again, the most important thing is the placement, so it's not the air is not flowing around and you're gonna not get the best results.
Unless you have 2-year-olds.
Well, please don't put it where 2-year-olds could get, good question, good point. Please don't put it where a child could get it.
Or the dogs.
Yeah, yes, definitely, or cats.
Okay.
Cats will bat it around. Any other questions or concerns? Again,
Early on, you said about lung cancer, smoking.
Yeah.
What did you say, 20 per thousand?
so it increased to 20 per 1,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what, do you know what that is equivalent to in terms of radon concentration? Just to
No.
give me an
So I
idea.
will tell you, this is what I'll tell you, is that I'm a nurse. So the way individual bodies react to any substance is different. What your cumulative exposure to different things may make you at greater risk, hence the smoking. Secondhand smoking, we didn't discuss it here, but secondhand smoking would put you at greater risk because you're smoking, but not smoking, you know what I mean? You're still getting that irritant into the lung. So at certain levels, one person may be more affected than others. I can't say to you at 4.0 PICs to the liter, you're going to get lung cancer. It's not like that. It's a little bit your risk increases as the amount of radon increases because you have more exposure. So this is something that people didn't necessarily know about or were not concerned about in years past, so we didn't test for it. Likely, I mean, it looks like most of us are above 40, and so we probably we could have lived in a home that had radon, and we as a child, and we didn't know. And there used to be, this is about your question about good information, go EPA, CDC, but it used to be that there were people that, and they still do, some people believe that radon, exposure to radon actually has health benefits. So they'll go to mines, the abandoned mines, and sit exposing themselves to radon. I would not suggest that. I would tell you no.
It's called the radiation therapy.
Yeah, well, yeah, kind of a radiation therapy, yes. DIY radiation therapy. I want everybody to take a card if they want, my card, and this information. Does anybody else have any other questions? Concerns, anything else? So I'd love you to come back to the 23rd of February when, again, Lynette Swanson, our chief sanitarian, and I don't know if you know, I didn't know what a sanitarian was until I started working for the health department. So I'll just let you know what a sanitarian does. They do a lot. They're out there going to food service, making sure that the restaurants are kept clean and up to code. They're out there doing soil testing, septic work, all that environmental things that the public health does. That's what they do. So she's very knowledgeable. She's been in a long time. She should give you some great information about testing your well. And I'm so glad that Trish has asked us to come and talk to people about it so that you have an idea what you may need to do and how you need to do it. So I encourage you to come.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. You're
Really
very, very
appreciate it, and thank you all for coming out tonight. Please keep an eye out for our newsletter, which will be coming out in the next few days. It'll have a link for registering for the WELLS program next month, and a whole host of other things going on. So hopefully we will see you throughout the month. Thank you so much, Cecily.
Oh, you're welcome.